Today's episode of Slotshotpodcast is brought to you by Natick, Massachusetts' own Dunkin' Donuts. Slotshot runs on our 4 p.m. Dunks run. Jack's a hot milk caramel guy. Army's a hot 1 cream, 1 sugar. And old Rusty always goes year-round black iced. And oftentimes, my everything bagel minis. Boy, is that a treat. These are munchkin-sized bagel dough balls seasoned with everything bagel and stuffed with plain cream cheese. Delish. Download the Dunkin' app today to start collecting your rewards.
Welcome back to Slotshot Podcast, a hockey podcast, episode 51, after the 50 mark has been hit. Fun little Termite show last week, so definitely tune in to see who made the all-Termite list. If not, check out the Slotshot Instagram page as it's all over our Instagram. Boys, how are we? How are we doing on this? We're recording a day early in the schedule, but because of Valentine's Day. But how are we doing on a Tuesday? A little Tuesday action for the Slotshot boys. How are we doing?
Doing well. Real fired up. Had a great weekend. Kind of second annual trip up to the Wisconsin Northwoods with one of our boys and kind of his family up there. And Army came along this time, and oh my goodness, it's like just miles from Canada up there, Eagle River. It's the site of a pond hockey tournament that we played in last year with a bunch of guys on our team. And this year the tournament was canceled, but we still went up there just for some outdoor winter sports and some good old-fashioned, Wisconsin flavor. And I got to say, it completely exceeded expectations. Like last year, the pond hockey was clearly the worst part of the whole trip, which is to say it was a great trip. And this year we had no pond hockey, and it was phenomenal. We did a lot of crazy shit. I mean, there's so much to unpack, from the billboards on the way up and the road trip to the general vibe up there in the Wisconsin Northwoods, all the way through just the consumption, the Kurds, the Great Lakes Hockey League, GLHL. Caught another game up there, and it was just an A+ weekend. What's that, Jack?
Any good action on the ice?
It was a great game. It was an OT winner, wasn't it, Army?
Yeah.
It
was pretty electric.
Contact or non-contact?
Totally contact.
Oh, yeah.
But the level's not that much higher than like Johnny's B League.
Gotcha.
But what's great about it, and it makes you miss it in the NHL a little bit, or at least me, is like you got a wide variety of players out there with different helmet looks. Some with the no visor. You got the young kids who like just are off like actual juniors probably with their bubbles. They
so
got
they still had the cage.
Not the cage. There was a couple cages, but they have those. Those junior like face masks that they wear.
The wider, or they're just
the
a little
huge
different.
bubble
Yeah.
ones. And then you got the guys with just nothing. Out there grinding. And some there was the captain of the opposing team was like 40.
Any fights?
Sick flow.
No tilts.
There was one.
What? Really?
Big Chungus, number 3.
Oh yeah.
He threw down.
Oh yeah. Jesus. Hey, a couple of beers up there. I'm not gonna lie, but what an event in the Eagle River Dome, site of the Wisconsin Hockey Hall of Fame. We checked out Craig Ludwig's exhibit up there. Actually had some beers with a neighbor that knows the Ludwigs. Craig Ludwig, obviously Eagle River Zone, longtime NHLer and
this looks like a bar.
Champion of the most elite shin pads in NHL history. Still haven't looked up if they changed the rules based on Ludwig's shin pads or not, but
let's go with that. You told some people that.
That's right. On never in doubt, often wrong. Classic Rusty fashion. It was. All right. Do I start with the billboards? Is that where we kick things off?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead on the billboards.
On the boards.
No. This is on the drive up.
On the drive up.
Oh.
I'm just so pissed that I wasn't quick enough with the phone to get pictures of these billboards. I'm so bad at live capturing things, but it was just you get past Green Bay, okay, and you're going north on 45, and first of all there's a franchise of trucker bars called Club 45 that you drive by a number of different locations for, and then the subsequent billboards on that basically follow the billboard sequences follow the following formula. It's very intense pro-life message, followed by very intense Second Amendment, like assault weapon shooting club sign, followed by some kind of a like radical pro. I don't want to say radical, but a very pro truckers, pro farmers sequence, followed by what else, Army? What else was up?
Then you get like the Culvers. Now we're at like the back half of the stretch of, because the billboards would come in a stretch of like 5. So after you get all of that intense messaging, you get like Culver's next exit, which is pretty much most exits up there.
This should have been.
And then it finishes with the Lion's Den, which is the local like.
It's not local. It's a national chain.
I know, but it's like the local sex shop in every town, because there's so many billboards for them.
Yeah.
But it's quite the display of like 5 billboards in a row. Like,
and not to mention a couple exotic dancer clubs that
totally
are featured there along the way. So just a great taste of America up there in the Northwoods. And it was a total blast. And I mean, we can't spend 45 minutes on it, which I'd like to, but basically Saturday, the lake was frozen, not the one the pond hockey tournament was going to be on, but the one in our buddy's backyard. And, me, Army, and our buddy Guy, and like we were just in hockey skates the entire day. Basically went for like a hike on the pond in hockey skates. The pond was not hockey condition. Really difficult to stride there. You're overcoming a lot of snow, a lot of bumps. Eagle River,
like an obstacle course.
Eagle River is the snowmobiling capital of North America. And so there's snowmobile tracks on the lake that's frozen. So there's just all these ridges, and it was arduous grinding there. But the boys got some exercise, and then basically, the rest of the crew kind of like did their like alpine skating on their way back, or alpine's the wrong word for it, but they have like different blades and shit. And then me and Arm just pretty much worked our way across the pond in hockey skates. Firing pucks up in the air and just kind of chasing them down, and just this.
And we saw the ice fishermen. We went over and checked in with them. They were, they said nice words, but it didn't feel like they were that welcoming.
Yeah.
It felt like after a minute we'd overstayed our welcome.
Yeah, so we got out of there. But we created a new game, which is pond hockey golf. And we grabbed like a piece of firewood and would cycle between me, Army, and Guy. We would skate out, and each person would spot the hole on each subsequent hole. And so you take the piece of wood, and you go and you basically skate out a determined distance, whether it's going to be a par 3, 4, or 5, and you try to find a patch of ice that will become like the putting green. And then you place the firewood there on the green, and we determine the tee box, and then the boys just either rip a clapper, either go for a sauce, however you want to figure it out. We just work our way towards the green and keep scores. And
any hole-in-ones?
No, a couple came close. Couple great. Rusty had a great putt to sink the game for Eagle.
You won.
This is your first inaugural Cranberry Open champion.
And it was a solid like
Rusty
25-footer too. And he was clutch around the greens. Unfortunately for me, the part of my golf game where I miss short putts that should be made translated very well into ice golf.
When we're talking short putts, how short are we talking?
I missed like 5 to 8 footer multiple times with a hockey stick.
I ended up beating Army.
Puck.
I ended up beating Army by 1 stroke. But what was hilarious about it was so much fun for me because it was basically what golf must be like for people that are decent at golf. Like I could actually put the puck where I wanted it to go.
Will this motivate you to work on the real golf game?
Maybe, probably not. Maybe. But what was funniest was that our buddy Guy, who we all know is like a pretty good hockey player, he was just as bad at pond hockey golf as I am at real golf.
Interesting.
It just kept going just over the green. It was
350 drive over the green.
Bladed wedges the whole game.
But it was just a blast up there.
Soft hands. We're the soft hands.
Anything to wrap it up, Army?
I would say one of the last highlight of the weekend that I'll mention at the Eagle River Falcons game, GLHL, some dunce on the other team loses his glove like a bozo. Glove gets tossed into the crowd, and the crowd's like hiding this glove. We throw it down like the hallway, so it's just farther away. The coach starts going nuts, and he's like the opposing coach from across the ice is yapping, and him and Ross get in like a direct confrontation from across the ice, and he's like, "Come over here," trying to fight him.
Is this like one of the scenes at a goon here?
He's sitting there trying to get the glove back. I start yelling at him, "Go to pure hockey."
And it's getting pretty testy. The crowd around's laughing. Everyone's having a good time. So
no stadium security.
Zero.
No,
absolutely zero.
No, the glove came back because the guy who got the penalty for tossing it was like, we're gonna get another penalty if we don't get it back. So.
Hey, fan to player interaction at the what was it? The
GLHL, Great Lakes Hockey League.
I like it. Maybe the boys will have to make an appearance if possible.
Yeah, I think we could challenge them with our beer league team and maybe put up a fight.
Maybe. And fight is the operative word there.
Lovely. Well, glad to hear you guys had a great weekend. Glad to hear it was fun up in Wisconsin. A great part of being in the Midwest is you got so many different places to go and see, and being in Chicago, it kind of gets you out of the sphere of being in the city. So it's cool to be able to get out, and jealous I wasn't able to join you guys, but
it's a new experience for me, right? As like a Mass guy, it's like, yeah, you go up and like you go skiing every now and again.
Yep.
And you got the mountains, but there's not like I haven't just like been exposed to just going up there in the fucking flat flat like land of 1,000 lakes and 10,000 or whatever. But no, it was a great time.
Nice. Well, always good here in Chicago. Another fun week. But getting back to hockey, we are a hockey podcast. We spent a good chunk of time here talking about your guys' life, but I actually enjoyed the little back and forth about hearing about the weekend up in.
It was hockey related for some of it.
No, it was decently hockey related. And hey, you got to trademark the what was the game called again?
The Cranberry Open.
Cranberry Open.
We need a name for what we're going to call.
Yeah, we're still struggling with that. Pond hockey golf is a little too linear. We'll have to come up with something.
Yeah.
Paul.
We're gonna need some.
That's a start.
We're gonna need brainstorming on that.
Yeah, we'll take it offline.
If you have an idea, we have a mailbag, so please send that in.
Yeah.
Please.
Where can you find the mailbag, Army?
Slotshotpod@gmail.com.
Podcast, but yes.
Slotshotpodcast@gmail.com.
Thank you.
Making sure they're listening.
Yep.
Spell it out.
Yep. Awesome. Well, let's get into tonight's episode. Tonight's menu of topics. We're going to start with Ridley Greig. Big incident in the Battle of Ontario between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Ottawa Senators. We've got Nikita Zadorov, who hit the shelf for 2 games after a suspension with a hit on Detroit forward Lucas Raymond. We got the Gwiddy. It's the Gwiddy show. We'll get to that later. Sergachev, unfortunately, the Lightning will miss one of their key defensemen for the long term as Sergachev hits the shelf. And then the always trade rumors. We're on our race to the trade deadline, so it's going to be a weekly kind of reoccurrence. And there are some big rumors to be had here. As no deals to be heard of, but not yet at least.
Not since last week.
Not since last week, correct. But some stuff to be talked about for sure. A little wild card check-in to see what the situations are looking like. And then the always loose change returns after last week's break. Termite of the week, new set of nominees after our Termite show last week. Ross is on the clock for the first one of the season, or the new year, I guess we'll say. Saturday picks, and that will be tonight's episode. But let's get into it. In a 5-3 loss for the Toronto Maple Leafs, forward Ridley Greig skates in, puck gets out of the zone with Montreal or Toronto having their superstars on the ice. Skates towards an empty net and just rips a clap bomb. And as Austin Matthews said, the hardest shot competition ended last week. But the results following would be Morgan Riley would not take kindly to this, and he would lay a cross check to Greig's head as he would then be kicked out of the game. But chaos kind of ensued as Ottawa was putting the final touchings on a 3-1 series win for the season for the Senators versus the Toronto Maple Leafs. But interesting stuff, reactions. Morgan Riley was offered an in-person hearing. We've been told that it's a Zoom in-person hearing. Generally, those are of the mark of about a 5-6 game suspension rate.
We're monitoring here in real time.
We are keep an eye on potential breaking news on the Slotshot podcast of what Morgan Riley's suspension could look like. But right now, it looks like it could be with the in-person of a 5 to 6 mark. Greig will be okay. He is skating in their game versus Columbus tonight. But boys, this was a game that had 2 penalties until this point, and then kind of things ensued. Chaos went, and Toronto had a chance at tying this one. Unfortunately, the puck out of the zone. But what do we got on Ridley Greig, Craig? What do we got on Morgan Riley's responses? I've got some comments from both sides. It's a little debate. What do we think of the actions of the Ottawa forward?
So just first off, just to put this out there on what's going to happen to Morgan Riley, because I think it's we're going to probably hear it during the podcast, but when you get offered the in-person hearing, it allows them to give 5 games.
It's traditionally been the only time it's been less than 6 is I heard
it's very rare.
John Moore or something a few years ago.
But it allows essentially if you get the offer, you're allowed to be suspended 5+ games. That's the rule. I think given the David Perron incident earlier in the year, 6 games is probably what's going to happen here. I would be surprised if it's less. A very similar incident. Slight differences in situation that led to it, of course. But, you're expecting a pretty big chunk of time that Morgan Riley will be out for this Leafs team.
So let's just wind it back, all right? Opinions, let's just chronologically how the events unfolded. Opinions on Greig slap-shotting the empty netter.
Yeah, so I personally love it. I think he's been like a bright spot for the Senators in terms of mentality. He's a pretty high draft pick. I think he's a first-rounder.
Late first-rounder. Drew comps of actually a little bit of Marchand and
Michael Pekka.
And Michael Pekka, yeah.
A Selke Trophy winner.
A smaller Michael Pekka, basically.
No,
he's bigger than Pekka.
But he's got a gritty game to him, and he comes with skill too. For a team like the Senators that's kind of been lifeless, having a big win like this, I really don't mind it. I also I generally side towards things which go against like unwritten rules in the sport is like just be better, Like if you don't want that to happen, don't go down, and when it happens, just own it and, beat them the next time. I don't think they play again this year, but, I don't have an issue with it. Yeah, is it cocky? Is it kind of an annoying move? Yeah, if I was the Maple Leafs, would I be annoyed? Yeah, but that's about the extent of it. I don't hate on the guy. I don't hate on him for doing it.
Okay,
at all.
All right, Jack.
Bush League. I understand the fact that it's you're going to score the overtime or the game winner, or not the game winner, the game sealer in an empty net. But I think when you're taking a clap bomb from basically the top of the crease, if not a few feet past it, I see no reason for it. And I think the reactions were, would I cross-check to the head? No, I think Riley should have fought, but I think the reaction was proper, I guess is what I'll say.
So you said Bush League. I'd say beer league. That's beer league.
Yeah, beer league, Bush League. I would throw it in the same thing.
I get Arm's point about the Senators, but let's just think. I mean, we've talked a lot of Senators this year. Mm-hmm. What's the identity of the Senators? Emotionally out of control, unstable, and again, an underperforming team that's pissed away its season.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's who the Senators are. This is pretty much in line with that. Greig doing that. I mean, it would piss me off so much if I was a Leaf. I like the way that Riley went after 100% co-sign with Riley going after him. But if you're Greig and you're going to do that, like if he does that and he turns and drops his gloves and is ready for Riley coming at him, he's like the hero of the hockey world, and everyone's saying this guy's awesome. So the things that I just want to say before we get to Riley's engagement with him is, number one, that's absolutely Bush League, and everybody on the ice is going to know it. Number two, if you're going to be that guy, be ready to defend yourself immediately afterwards. Number three, Greig is a fucking rookie, all right? He's got absolutely no track record in the league to date, and that is all the more reason that doing that stuff, like, you should be absolutely ready for any kind of response that might come your way. Those are my big things on the Greig side of the house. Now we'll move to Morgan Riley, back around the horn. What do you think of the response, Army?
Yeah, I mean, I think cross-check to the head is not a play you want to see, but I think obviously a response should have been there. If I was in that situation, I'm not saying I wouldn't cross-check him in the head, but I would like to think I would just cross-check him right in the gut and then try to start a fight, Go hit him, but the head becomes a pretty dangerous play, so I don't love that. But he's going to get a suspension, and you're right. If you're going to make that play, be ready for somebody coming at you. I don't think Ridley Greig needs to drop the gloves right away because there's now all this hoopla of initiating fights that leads to different suspensions. So I get why I wouldn't do that, but be looking for Morgan Riley to come crack you because that's what should happen. And I defended Ridley Greig in doing it. It's still Bush League. I'm not saying it's not. I just kind of enjoy that part of the game. I think it can be fun. But be ready. Somebody's coming for you. I guess it's the Leafs, so maybe somebody isn't coming for you. But
and for the situation, it's an empty net situation where all the Leafs goal scorers are on the ice, right?
Yeah, which I have a point on about that later. But
okay.
Yeah,
Jack.
Loved the response. I think you got to just throw your gloves off and kind of go after him in the fighting sense. I don't love, like Arm said, the cross-check to the head, as that can cause some dangerous stuff, but absolutely warranted a response.
Fuck Greig. Like, I'm so for the cross-check to the head. Oh, it's a cross-check to the head. People get over cross-checks to the head. Like, it's not, especially that cross-check. Like, a hand came off of his stick as he did it. It wasn't like a complete vicious, like, I'm going to take your head off. It was I'm attacking your head and neck area, and I'm just charging at you with my hands, and my stick's up there. And to me, the entire issue comes back to this no man's land of player safety that we're now in this quasi post-fighting era, where this is another key example of what we're going to continue to see as the NHL and the idiots that keep pushing fighting out of it are going to have to deal with. And it's very frustrating. It's very frustrating that you have a generation of players like Greig that think they can pull this shit and not have to answer for it. That really pisses me off.
I don't disagree.
And, sorry, the last thing, I'm officially back in on Morgan Riley.
Morgan Riley
all the way back in on Morgan Riley.
The Toronto Maple Leafs potential
I saw him
player.
play one game where he wasn't great, and I kind of overreacted on the pod. I'm officially back in on Morgan Riley. Okay?
It happens. No, I mean,
That's
where
my Norris futures is pretty much gone.
I'm glad you say that, because the reality is that's where I think Toronto is like, all right, well, I think the prior history to someone who's been jumped, like gets sucker punched or just isn't expecting a punch, where, I think after that situation you probably should, but as you said, but that has been typically of a 1 to 2 game suspension. I think where Toronto is potentially going to lose their best defenseman, who've already had problems keeping defensemen healthy for 6 games in a stretch that Toronto needs to stay healthy, and they're in a dogfight up in that division. So that's where I get concerned about what is potentially going to happen. But I think Morgan Riley has proven throughout last year's playoffs and for a long time that he is a number 1 A for that Toronto Maple Leafs blue line.
So what's more concerning for me than Morgan Riley missing games, and it's pretty typical of this Leafs team, but they have, so like after the scrum breaks out, after the Morgan Riley cross-check, Matthews and Marner are on the ice, so they go get into it. They go find a man. They do nothing. They're not trying to punch, and they're getting jabbed. Like, the Sens are jabbing them too. They're not like starting to fight, but they're mushing their face a little bit, and they're just kind of standing there and eating it. This Wings podcast I listened to had coined this term, or I don't know if they coined it, but they mentioned this term, big leaf energy. This is exactly what this is. It's just those two, like, oh, we have to go get in, but we have no interest in taking any shot at anyone. It's a joke. I mean, Morgan Riley goes and makes a play that he knows he's going to eat a paycheck, eat a fine, eat a suspension for. He doesn't know how long it's going to be. If Greig gets injured, it was probably a bigger suspension, right? It is big leaf energy, not doing anything. Your best players, and you look at other teams' best players that are good, they get into the mixer. Look at a lot of these guys get into the mixer on these competitive teams. I just don't see any of it from the Leafs, and it's expected.
Yeah,
so,
credit to Max Domi getting in there.
Actually, Domi and
Jack,
Nylander.
Just give me a second, please. Credit to Max Domi for getting in there, but I had sort of an epiphany after seeing some of this footage and the coverage around it. My biggest oversight in picking the Leafs to come out of the East is the fundamental problem with their roster, which is the division of labor. They have scorers and grinders, and they have zero overlap. And that is a losing formula. That goes back to the way the team is built. Their scorers don't grind, and their grinders don't score. And that is the problem with the Leafs. And they cannot win with this current construction. And it just really, all of that, it's like, I'm not pissed because I'm not a Leafs fan. But, God, if I was, that would just make me so saddened and just, depressed about this whole collection of talent, because you're a hockey player, okay? I don't care if you're Austin Matthews. I don't care if you're Ovechkin, Crosby. Those old school guys, they would have been much more engaged in this kind of a thing.
They would have been pissed about it.
Completely. And they would have made that known. And I'm not saying, Crosby's going to be down there, throwing the gloves off at center ice, squaring up, but the old school guys like a Jerome McGinley, Bill Guerin, like the old era of players that could score and fight is just almost completely gone. And it's a sad state of affairs right now. And I think nobody even personifies it better than Big Leaf.
But
energy.
you don't even need to fight. Like, there are these superstars now that will drop the gloves.
I'm sorry, Arm. You do need to fight. That's my whole point in this situation. When Greig claps it into the net, he's starting a fight. That's what he's doing. He's inciting a riot. He's starting a fight. And he needs to understand that and not think that he's in this little bubble of, this next gen TikTok broccoli head bullshit. And he's got to be ready for it. And if he wants to be that grinder agitator, he's going to need to be ready to fucking defend himself. Because from what it sounds like, and he sounds like the kind of player that we really like, I thought about nominating him as a Termite earlier in the year. Would have been a little too cliched today to do it. But it's just, it really chaps my ass.
I agree, but I don't think Marner needs to go in there and try to drop the gloves. I do think he needs to go in there and shove some guys in the face.
So
I think there's a different
Domi and
do something.
Here's the other thing, and Arm just touched on it, which is I don't think he needs to drop his gloves. Shove guy, blah, blah, blah. You see the modern scrum, the modern pillow fight, and everybody's still holding their sticks, and they're pushing and they're holding their sticks. That's dangerous. The sticks up around the faces during these little pillow fight scrums. It's like because nobody's willing to just drop their gloves and grapple with a guy. If you watch old fights, like old line brawls, there's really usually one or two real fights going on. But everyone else has their gloves off and they're grappling and they're taking care of their man so that guy can't throw a punch at somebody else. Instead of this gloves on, sticks up bullshit, it's another step away from fighting that I think is making the sport and the league more dangerous versus less dangerous. And I'm not going to die on that. I'm going to die on that hill. I'm not going to back off of that tape.
We hear you.
Sure, yeah.
We hear you. Getting into some of the comments of player reaction. Claude Giroux of obviously the Ottawa Senators. The emotions sometimes will get to you. I obviously don't like to see him getting in the face there, but there's not much really to say. Sometimes that kind of stuff happens.
Translation. Giroux's an old school guy. He's saying that was Bush League by Greig. Greig's got to be ready for it.
Yep.
And Greig took it in the head, so I'm not going to throw my boy under the bus.
Yeah, it's the perfect quote there.
And it's one of those also, I think, Twitter kind of, as they kind of had their opinions of it, it's players understand it, the media doesn't.
But Giroux in his day, right, some of the way that he would play as a flyer going after Crosby and those flyer Penguins, like, he gets it. He's a scorer that can grind. Like, and it's sad to me.
Besides that, Reeves said the reaction was appropriate. I was expecting a fine, a one-game suspension max. Leafs enforcer Ryan Reeves said the kid got up. He was completely fine. I think that has to be taken into account too.
Didn't he also say something about if he was on the ice again?
Something like that.
I read a different quote about him potentially being on the ice in this situation, and he would have done something, which is the second time this year I've heard him say that, and I haven't seen him do much.
Well, you're not going to expect Ryan Reeves to be out there when you're trying to score the game-tying goal in the last 20
I also don't
seconds.
need Ryan Reeves to tell me that he's going to fight somebody in those situations. That's the only reason you're in the NHL.
And
we know.
I hear
He's
you.
trying to
love
be
the
this
comments
tough
you
guy
heard.
to defend the other guys who won't be tough, and it's like that's why you need them to be tough because you're going to be out there 8 minutes a night if you're lucky.
And his toughness, right? Like back in his day, right? He was a legit heavyweight with all the heavyweights and maybe the heavyweight of the league, right?
At one point,
but now he's like the tallest midget in the world of fighting. Like nobody can fight. Nobody can fight but him. He can't play, but he can fight. Nobody else can fight, but everyone else can play better. So it's just like I don't think he has really any credibility to weigh in on this, despite his track record.
No, his quotes this year are making me think he just wants to be on some broadcast network.
Last
in 3
line,
years.
And he probably will be, and he'll probably get bought out.
His last little line: a guy takes a clapper into our net. You're going to go play patty cake with him. No, there's got to be a message sent. The code's changed a little bit, but the game's changed a lot, and it's unfortunate that these young kids like that can get away with something like that, and then one of our best players is going to get suspended for it.
I mean, we mentioned off pod, right? And you got Stützle diving around out there for the Sens. We've talked a million times this season about Brady Tkachuk just being completely emotionally out of control as the captain and leader. The whole team having a kind of vacuum of just like really maturity. Like that's what they lack as a team. They lack the maturity. I think they've got everything else.
We look at the roster, you'd say they'd have the talent, but
they have some veterans on the team. It's not like they're only young guys.
And so we don't need to like turn this into a why the Sens are the Sens this year. But I can't get away from Claude Giroux, and I think it's his shortcomings as a leader that have been the primary issue with this team this year. I just do, and I love Giroux. I'm definitely a Giroux guy, but this team needs like 2 more Claude Giroux, and the fact that he can't like elevate his leadership and influence over that team to bring an ounce of maturity to this what's become a disaster of a season on a talented roster. To me, I mean, it just says he's not the guy to fix it. They need someone else.
Well, and I think like we've talked about, I think it's maybe a potential. If Brady doesn't start to clean things up and get a little bit more control on the team. That might be a change that needs to be seen as well, and I don't know.
They're never going to take the C away from.
I know,
them.
But I don't think.
And I think Brady's going to grow into it. I really do. I think this offseason is going to be a big one for him mentally to start understanding his
what
role.
It takes.
He's just emerging from young player to veteran, and he's kind of in the middle of that transition right now. But it's just like this team needed it 8 months ago, and now here they are at the bottom of the standings. Pulling this kind of bullshit and not being ready to back it up. So that's what I got on it, boys.
I'm hitting
Is there anything
refresh
else to say?
On the player safety Twitter.
All right, how many games do you think Riley should get? How many do you think he will get?
I think he should get 7, based on precedent.
Oh, he's
like
a little biased.
Well, no, if Perron gets 6, I think that's 7.
Perron went after the wrong guy.
Face, I know. Straight to the face.
Perron went after the wrong guy. Perron was also reacting to an accidental play.
I know, but
Perron's teammate was out cold on the ice.
My difference is
it's just a different scenario.
You gotta remember, Arm doesn't think it's accidental.
Well, I don't, but so the president there, Perron turns around. Yeah, he goes the wrong guy, but he sees his captain knocked out on the ice. Morgan Riley was upset because they lost, and he was upset that they showboated and celebrated the loss. That's different to me, and I don't think you can give Perron 6 and not give Riley 6 for the same exact cross-check.
Well, all right.
Is the new breaking news? All right, we'll get it.
Let's get the predictions out first.
What do I think?
I can't say it.
Okay. I think he should have got 1. I think he will get 6.
The Weeks bomb, apparently from Kevin Weeks about 7 minutes ago on Twitter. He's being told that it will be a 5-game suspension for Morgan Riley of the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Whatever. I mean, that's such a huge loss for them. Like these points matter, and Riley is maybe the most maybe the one guy you can't take away from that team.
I know.
Because as sick as Matthews is, right, you can get scoring elsewhere. You can't get Morgan Riley's play on the blue line anywhere else in that roster.
I understand, but this is I know you think it should be 1. This is a fair suspension for him. That's what they've established. He saw the Perron hit. He knew what the suspension was. When you go cross-check somebody in the face, that's what you get.
I'm just saying, if I was in Paros's shoes, right, which is obviously that's a really tough job he's got. I think he's done a pretty shit job, a very shit job, especially the last 2 years. I would have suspended Greig. I would have given Greig a game. I would have given Riley 2 games.
That's an interesting one. Suspending a guy for showboating.
I don't know. Greig looks back on the play. He sees where guys are. He knows he's got the time and space. It's, on 32 Thoughts, they brought up the Patrick Stefan play.
And just the way that Greig drops and just in just turtles.
Like who's first guy in on the Sens though?
So gutless.
You know who's first guy on the Sens?
Pinto.
I love it.
Pinto's a fine guy.
He's building his trust back.
And the thing is, it's like if you're gonna be the Sens and you're gonna have that attitude and you're gonna do that thing, everybody should be ready to go right after you do it.
Which I think they are, and I think that kind of hurts them.
Don't show Greig. I mean, Greig wasn't ready for it.
Yeah, he was celebrating.
Yeah, you're a big celebration guy. We'll get to that.
Morgan Riley suspended 5 games for his actions on Saturday night versus the Ottawa Senators in a 5-3 win.
Final point, just to solidify it, right? Add this to the list of unnecessary suspensions that have now become necessary because fighting's being exterminated. End of Rusty rant.
I hear you. Moving on to our next suspension. Defenseman of the Vancouver Canucks, Nikita Zadorov, has been suspended 2 games without pay for an illegal check to the head of Lucas Raymond. This is a game that Detroit would come out on top. A fun, spirited game between Vancouver. This was Army's pick for Saturday picks. Raymond's coming across the ice on basically in between the red line and the blue line in the middle of the play. I think puck is just moving off of him, and Zadorov finishes his check. Zadorov being the big fella that he is, it looks like he's leading with his elbow, but kind of seems like his shoulder kind of gets his neck face area. So you're seeing where that is called. I'm trying to see what the penalty was called on the ice. I don't know if you remember.
It's a 5-minute major. That's what they call it.
For a shot to
And
the head.
game misconduct. And it's
Before we get Arm's opinion, because
Let me
this
just
isn't an
double
opinion.
check
This is
this.
just telling
Let
you
me
what
just double
happened.
check.
It's the vintage clip of the head. You know, it wasn't an elbow. It wasn't. I don't think it was even malicious.
Match
but
penalty, yep.
He clips him in the head. Straight contact to the head.
no argument there. When you watch the clip, a couple things stand out to me. Number one, Raymond shouldn't be watching his pass. He should be ready for contact like that. This play and that step up. Do you guys remember Aaron Rome's hit on Nathan Horton in the 2011 Stanley Cup Final?
No.
It was like 2 seconds late, and it was totally dirty, right?
One of those where you're trying to hurt.
And he hit him
trying to
like,
get him high.
He hit him totally square, like in the head neck, but like completely unsuspecting because it was so late. Yeah. This wasn't late, okay? And if you watch the way that Zadorov stepped up, Zadorov is hesitating. He's got hesitation to his step up. Mm-hmm. I think for that reason, he doesn't bury Raymond. Like he could have absolutely laid him out.
Yep.
And I think he should have, because that would have been a clean play if he just shoulder to body, just dropped him, got 100% of him. But there's a hesitation to him, and he doesn't like throw an elbow. He just kind of naturally arm and elbows like collides up with the head because he's trying to almost avoid him and avoid this car crash of a hit that he stepped up to make.
He's not trying to avoid him.
I think
he's trying to catch a piece, but he's not trying to kill him. He's just trying to catch a piece.
And my point is, my point is, he should have killed him because he probably still would have got 2 games or less. And
I don't think it would have been. If he got him in the chest, I think it would have been fine.
Maybe.
The reason he mistimes his hit, and he ends up trying to like still catch him with the shoulder in the chest, and he gets him in the head.
He's hesitating.
I think
right?
it's a little bit of size played into this one as well.
It is, but that's how things are called. Like that's.
I don't disagree with you. That's
just how it's called.
No, I get it. And like, but I don't think he stepped up thinking I'm going to pick this guy's head.
No.
I think he stepped up and then he was like, do I hit him? Do I not hit him? And then what happened was his elbow hit him in the head.
I think he realized he missed the hit and knew he had to catch him. Otherwise, it's a 2-on-1.
What is Raymond's health status?
He's fine. He's fine.
Return to
I think 2. So for me, 2 games is fine on this because this is a hit that you don't want in the league.
Fine. 1 game, fine.
Yeah, I'd be fine with that too. That's what everyone
I'm
is
saying
expecting.
1 game or a fine. I think he got 2 and like a $40,000 fine.
Right, because that's his paychecks. But
I just don't mind. This hit is for me just. There's no point of having it in the league. It's straight like just trying to injure somebody's
with
brain.
You, but I see this on the low end of those bad
That's
hits.
why Gallagher 2 weeks ago maybe got a 5-game suspension.
I hear you.
Because his was a clear trying to do that.
Yes.
And I think
and
that's
following through as hard as he could on the guy's head.
Which is why I think they made a good decision here. You know, they don't want that hit in the game. And I even if you're the old school hockey guy, that's not a hit you want.
I blame Zadorov. He should have killed him. He should have killed him. He should have killed him right through his body. He just should have.
Yeah. It's him messing up and
cost himself a chunk of change.
And I don't
in 2
mind
games.
I hear you.
But I don't think it was malicious. He does try to clock people, and he does a good job of it. That's a big part of his game. He missed him this time.
Don't worry.
Yeah, maybe he mistimed it. Maybe he was overly hesitant. But it's ultimately on Zadorov, obviously. But Raymond also, dude. It's like you want to play a long time in this league, and you can protect yourself. Like keep your fucking head up.
Well, he's playing, so And I don't blame Lucas Raymond for it. He got clipped.
Well, I do.
He's 20.
Moving on, but to the same game, the Gwiddy. We all know what the Gwiddy is. The Gritty is, it's a nice little dance that's been popular. Oh my God, that has been popular on TikTok and all the Instagram and social medias. Jake Wallman has brought it to the NHL in a overtime penalty shootout or penalty shot. Wallman would bury the puck and then proceed to hit the Gwiddy. Funny enough, this would actually be the second time he's pulled this, and it would both times be against Casey DeSmith of the Vancouver Canucks, who was in net. So DeSmith has been Gwiddied twice, but these boys were away in Wisconsin, but my immediate reaction was someone's got to kill this guy. I know it's exciting, it's fun, it's a different atmosphere, but I almost think getting Gwiddied on is just as disrespectful as taking a slap shot from about 10 feet out on the crease. So I think a response is desired. But that's just me. But, boys, what do we got on the Gwiddy? I know Ross doesn't want to spend too much time on this.
So, just context on this game. Wings were down 3-1. Zadorov hit happens. Lucas Raymond is, like, by far the youngest player on the team, so he's, like, kind of the kid in the locker room. DeBrincat throws down for a fight, which he's continued to do in big moments.
He needs to not fight.
He loses all his fights, but he will do it, which to me is huge.
I think it's great. I think it's great, but don't go picking Ian Cole to fight. I think that's a losing battle.
I don't care. He knows he's not. There's not many winning battles for DeBrincat in fights.
Well, you talk about Nylander and Matthews and Marner not needing to get into these fights. I think this is one of those situations with DeBrincat.
All right. Well, he's done it a couple times this year.
I get it.
The team likes it, and he's not hurt.
Agree with Arm on DeBrincat fighting. Good for him fighting.
So the Wings come back in this game. Big win. You know, the Wings they're hot right now. There's energy in the city about this team. The crowd's going nuts, right?
Yep.
I love the Gritty. You know, you may not like it. I don't know why. Like you watch the NFL, the most popular sport on the planet, or in the U.S. It's all about the celebrations now, and they're embracing it. An OT winner in a shootout is like a pretty awesome
penalty shot.
Penalty shot. Sorry, penalty shot. That's what I meant.
Even cooler.
It's awesome, and I think that is the moment to go flex on them. You know, go dance. You had chippy game, big comeback win against a really good team. You're at home, first game in 10 days. Do it for the fans, and the fans love it, dude. Everyone's getting turned up about this, hating on it. Yeah, maybe somebody go take a run on him. Fine, whatever. Mo Sider will be right in behind you. I don't care if you want to take a run at him if you don't like it, but like as a fan, I don't understand how you hate on a player celebrating, riling up the crowd. They're playing well. This was an important game. I don't understand why that's such a big deal.
I think it's disrespectful.
I think it's the dance that has the issue for you, because when Kane does the heartbreaker, you love that.
Yeah, I do and I don't.
Not now, you don't.
Well, no. I mean, specifically now, no, I don't. But, I mean, I don't know. My big Hossa celebration after the Nashville game was my big celebration that I love.
Dude,
and I get it. It was hype, but
people like
I don't
burn
know.
cities and riot when their team wins.
I don't give a shit about how he celebrates. He won the game. Do what you want. Who cares? Your take, Jack, that's equal to slap-shotting and empty netting.
I just think it's disrespectful.
Is ridiculous.
That's fine.
It's a ridiculous
thing.
So what? If he drags his leg and does a more traditional hockey celly, that's less that's less disrespectful than doing this stupid little new popular dance.
I don't know. I'm over it. I'm over it. That's all.
Whatever.
I'm not a big Wallman guy, so I guess there's a little biased hate there, but I don't know. The Canucks and Red Wings play again here on Thursday, so that'll be one I'll tune into.
Zadorov avoids his scrap. I don't know
I don't know when he comes back.
He comes back after that game, I believe.
He'll be back for that. They've got Chicago tonight. That'll be his second one.
Oh, true.
So that is Detroit and Vancouver. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about it in loose change. The next one on the list is defenseman Sergachev. Unfortunate play. Broke his broke his tibia, I believe, is what it ended up.
Tib
fib, even worse. One of those situations where the boys were actually watching the game, and unfortunately the stretcher was pulled out. Players kind of on the ice kind of knew he was in some pretty good pain, so I'm sure you could hear it if you were in the building or if not close towards the situation. But unfortunately, Mikhail would have to be lifted and taken off the ice via stretcher. He did post to Instagram saying it's just more kind of why me a little bit, but unfortunately, it's been a tough little stretch of injuries for Sergachev, and unfortunately he misses most likely the remainder of the season, and we'll see what his status is for next season. But this is a Tampa team that's already been in search for deadline help. They've been apparently in the rumor mill for Hanifin, and but I want to talk a little bit about Sergachev because then we'll lead into trade rumors.
Yeah, so brutal for Tampa Bay, for the player himself. Guy who's just coming back from an injury, seems to have a bug now. Tough, you don't want to see it. That's a pretty major injury. He won't be able to skate for a long time. Probably not walk for a while. He's got to fix a broken leg, 2 broken legs, I guess, in one leg. I don't know how to describe that.
2 broken bones in one leg.
Yeah.
There you go.
But also his Instagram post, I thought was. Did you read the whole thing?
Oh yeah.
He was totally on the painkillers.
Yeah.
And he was like, it started off like emotional sad, which I get, like it's got to be tough. A young professional player, like continuing to get hurt. This is a major one, kind of change your outlook on the next like 6 months of your life. But then he's like, but these pills are great. It's a nice sunny day. My girlfriend's wheeling me around. I'm like, okay, man. Like, it was kind of funny to me, and I'm glad those pain meds gave him some humility in the situation.
So my gut reaction seeing it was, I mean, what a terrible and fluky way that he goes down. You see the way that his ankle and leg bend, and it's just it makes you cringe. Nothing's wrong with his left leg.
I was gonna say that was not your gut reaction.
Nothing's wrong with his left leg. Get him on a skate and have somebody help him while he hobbles.
Do you know
with his broken thing?
Well, let me ask you this.
What?
Did Stamkos get carted off when he broke his, I think, fibula?
I don't think the stretcher came out. I haven't seen the stretcher.
Remember.
But what I've kind of wrapped my head around is, number one, there could be a real medical thing about the broken bones. You don't want that leg dangling while he hobbles on one foot.
Seen it with.
Yep.
I get that that's a thing, and that's outside my realm, so I should just shut the fuck up. I've also never broken a bone, so I'm not qualified at all. The other aspect, to be sympathetic to Sergachev, right, is that it was his first game back from injury. On one of his knees, right? So he was probably playing a little weird, and you know how it can be when you're coming back and you're a little sensitive, and certain movements aren't the same, and you don't have confidence like in your body and in your support, and in the mental toll when he realizes, as he's on the ice, like something's totally fucked up. I could see that just putting him into a mental state that is just like he in that moment he was emotionally incapable of getting off the ice himself. So I'm not going to go on a tirade about, skate off the ice. So
it's tough.
That's it. And it's a huge blow. I mean, he's a great player, and we've talked so much about how shallow their blue line is after Hedman and him and Chernak, and how you can't lose one of those guys. We saw it in the playoffs last year when the Leafs, Mikey C cheap shotted Chernak, how the entire series turned. The Lightning are fucked. Well,
I went and looked.
But just last thing, and I don't know what. Can we look up Sergachev's cap hit, because that's going to LTIR? But I don't think there is a smart move the GM can do. Is the GM still Brisebois? Whatever. I don't know if there's. I don't know if there are enough weapons in the war chest for the Tampa GM to replace Sergachev and improve that blue line, and that's what the Lightning need to do to contend for a cup. So I think this play eliminates the Lightning from cup contention.
5-5.
Well, it's a tough situation.
So they get $5.5 million in cap relief.
But they're kind of cornered into a situation now because Stamkos is a free agent this offseason. They've said openly they're not going to trade him, and I wouldn't be surprised if they try to re-sign him. But you don't know if that's going to happen. They now have Hayden Fleury and Eric Chernak. We like Chernak, but that's a bad second pairing.
I think Fleury belongs in the NHL.
Yeah, he's a third pairing defenseman. The guy who's now the third pairing, Emil Martinson Lilleberg. Never heard of him.
With DeHaan?
With Perbix.
Is
And
DeHaan-
Radish is playing
DeHaan's
first.
I like Pervix.
Oh, so DeHaan's out of the lineup at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Huh, it's positive.
Maybe he's
Well, not anymore.
It changes the aspect.
But
I think this segues us well into trade deadline rumors, and in this week's edition, there's a few more names to be talked about. As we talked about, no trades happened since we've started recording / this week, following last week's fun exchanges. The big ones to talk about: goaltender of the Calgary Flames, Markstrom. Markstrom has been talked about in some rumors. And it's a big one has been surrounding him and Hanifin apparently going to the New Jersey Devils. Markstrom did have a no-trade clause movement. He apparently waived it for this move, but talks stalled and apparently have hit pause for this moment in time. But watch out to see if Markstrom heads to the Devils.
So here's what I'm interested about as far as like the interworkings of NHL GMs and press leaks and everything. Is somehow the information of the entire trade leaked to the press. Mm-hmm. And the information that the two teams couldn't come to terms about salary retention is the reason that it didn't go through. So I'm just trying to think, I'm trying to put on my insider hat or media hat and think about what's the motivation of leaking the exact terms of the trade that didn't go through only to say that we couldn't agree on salary retention. Is that one GM's way of saying, here's the asking price and don't try to fuck with us on retaining term? Or is that just a loose lip sink ships and, one of those teams is, I don't know, a little too chummy with the media? Or maybe they already floated it out there and they were ready to get it going. And then when it fell through, they didn't, blackball the reporting on it. I don't know. But that's what confuses me about this, because I can't think of another time when a big-time trade like that for an impact goalie like that, regardless of position, but an impact player like that, I can't think of a time where the terms leaked completely before the trade was executed, and then the trade ended up going through.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I am on it.
So, I think the fact that they were talking to Markstrom about waiving his trade clause means they were really at maybe the 10 or 5-yard line in terms of talks. But it sounds like Swedish sniper Alexander Holtz was the big part of the transaction going back to Calgary. But it does sound like a salary retention was a bit of an issue between the two teams. Arm, what do you got on this one?
Yeah, if there's somebody that's leaking it, it's got to be Calgary, essentially saying this is the asking price. And if you want us to retain salary, throw in something else. I don't see why the Devils would leak that, because they know a lot of people want Markstrom. He's been unbelievable this year, and I think if the Devils were to get Markstrom, they're all of a sudden
back.
They're kind of a cup contender.
Totally. Remember where they were at the start of the season, right? They pull a move like that, they're back.
That's a huge move.
Yes, they're still. Where are they?
Yeah, but they're dangerous.
They just got Jack Hughes back, who's tearing it up.
It would be a huge move. And the Devils' goaltending has been so bad. Markstrom has been so good. It would be the biggest move of the deadline in terms of impact of a team, by far. That is if he plays well. And apparently,
he's been on a tear.
One of the insiders was saying he does not like movement midseason. I don't know. Markstrom. Apparently, he's a little sketched out about that, which is why he has the full no trade.
Yeah. Just family, right? Personal off-ice reasons. Yeah, I get it.
Oh, Jersey sits 8. This is my cup pick. They sit 8 points out of the wild card. Percentages have them a little bit closer, but no, it's been a talk, and we will introduce our New Jersey friend at some point. But he's been pretty upset with the play of Vanacek and what the goaltending has resulted from the Jersey. Apparently, it's been reported that now maybe they will turn their focus towards Elvis Merzlikins of the Columbus Blue Jackets.
So that's not even near the same caliber of goalie, though. But they're only 4 points back of the wild card. They're 8 points back of a divisional spot.
No, they're the 64 points is Philly in this last. Oh, sorry, I'm reading it wrong.
Let's just clean up the math here, boys. They're in the
4
mix.
points.
We're not in the mix. We're not. They're 4.
They're in the
mix. 4 points and 8 points is a big difference when we talk about wild card.
Yes. That's on me. It's on me.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. I wonder if another team comes and tries to swoop Markstrom. I'm sure there's other teams interested. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if he still goes to the Devils. It seems like a good fit. And if they're interested in Holtz seems like a piece that not many other teams have. That it's not like a first-round pick, which teams are hesitant to move. And the Devils also have such a good core of locked-up money. They don't necessarily need to have more prospects coming through of that level. They can afford that.
It makes it hard to. Well, yes and no. It's $6 million that you're taking with Markstrom, so that's a tough number to probably make fit with what they've retained and re-signed.
That's the issue right now, but I'm sure they can figure that out.
To be determined. Let's talk a little bit about Pittsburgh. They've got 2 forwards that are potentially being asked of. First, Riley Smith, and second, Jake Gensel. Dubas is keeping things close to his chest, but it sounds like the team will keep monitoring kind of to see how this month keeps trending. But the reality is Pittsburgh is slowly kind of fading off into the distance. But, boys, what do we got on Riley Smith and potentially Jake Gensel on the move?
The Penguins overall, Dubas taking that job, I get, you just got fired in Toronto and, you want to get back into the league. That's a really tough job to walk into, the one that he did this summer. And I don't – Pittsburgh is just – they're in the worst spot that you could be in where, they've got their core critical guys are all locked up on big money. Mm-hmm. And, Crosby's still playing MVP hockey. Malkin, little bit of a coin flip every night. You don't know what you're going to get out of him.
Still good though.
And Carlson has still struggled to assimilate in there with Letang and a little bit of a redundancy of skill sets there. and then the rest of the roster's not good enough. And so I don't know what to make of this stuff. Like, I think there are obviously, like, those are two big chips, right? Like, Riley Smith, totally valuable,
Stanley Cup
middle
winner
six
last year.
forward. He could play anywhere in the top 9 on the wing. And then Gensel, that's a 40-goal guy that's got proven playoff success, and he's a total gamer. That's my thing with Gensel. It's like when the games get intense, like those playoff runs that the Pens had, he was absolutely clutch and on the money and proven playoff performer. And he's one of the highest end guys that's available at the trade deadline from a scoring perspective. So there's a lot of appealing pieces to move off, but how do you sit down with Sidney Crosby and tell him we're going to miss the playoffs for the second straight year without like laying out a real plan to get the ship back on its tracks? I just don't know. They feel like they're between a rock and a hard place because they must want to retain Crosby for his entire career. He's got a lot of game left.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And do you want to spend his final years working through a rebuild where maybe in his last 1 or 2 you're a little bit more in the mix again?
No, I hear you.
I guess you can reload and you can't, but now you're asking Kyle Dubas to do that. I wouldn't feel good about that.
Well, my thought would be when I look at this team, it's the most confusing team of the year by far to me. I don't understand.
Maybe of the last 2 seasons, to be honest.
I know, but they add Erik Karlsson. They have one of the worst penalty power plays and a good penalty kill. The amount of offensive talent, you'd think it would be the other way around,
Yeah.
I would trade Gensel, Rust, Riley Smith. If somebody wants Rickard Rakell, boom, gone. Lars Eller, Drew O'Connor. Just do a Calgary Flames reshuffle. The Flames, when they trade their big guys, they never want a ton of prospects. They they're always looking for NHL-ready players back.
Shit, and the Flames are still in it, even though they've been the
They
sellers.
do this all the time where they trade, good players for other good NHL players that are not as good, know? But, and I'm not saying they're, the standard, but you have stars. You can afford to go – say Gensel and Rust, a team that needs them. They're going to be better now. Mm-hmm. Go get some young guys who haven't panned out right now,
Or, as we've seen what the tickets have been for these premier players. Good draft money.
What's an example of the guys that you get back for Rust and Gensel?
Yeah, so Gensel, I think,
and
this is just an example. I don't know if the Canucks would be interested in them now that they've made this trade for
Lindholm. Yeah.
Gensel for a Nils Hoglander, a prospect that's close to the NHL but not can't break the roster right now.
No, he's playing.
And
Nils is playing.
I'm saying and.
Oh. Okay.
I know Nils Hoglander is playing. But him, an NHL player is the point, with a prospect that's close but can't break one of these top teams because they have so much talent, and then maybe a pick. Go get 3 or 4 assets that can slot into your lineup because you have so much star talent. You can hope that a Nils Hoglander, if you like the player, and this is just one example, can be better. Think about how Calgary went after Kuzmenko, and they slot him top line immediately. Yeah, he's not Elias Lindholm, but that's the type of move where it's yeah, we're selling, but we're also acquiring assets that we can put right back in immediately. It might help the reshuffle. Crosby, you can talk to him and be how do you convince him on selling house? Because it's not working. That's how. You say, look, this group of players is not working. We're stuck to Crosby, Malkin, Karlsson, Letang. We're not moving them, right? They're going to be on the team. Go bring in some different players and just run it back next year. And you could do it where they can still try to make a push this year. You can still make one of those trades where you just hope you get some guys who come in, play top line minutes, and all of a sudden they
points percentage wise.
If you look at their back-to-back cup runs, I didn't think they were a great team either year. They just caught fire and were incredible.
There's some truth to that.
Got goaltending on a map.
In terms of Gensel's name, it sounds like Edmonton has been linked to that a little bit. It should be interesting to watch.
Feels like the last thing Edmonton needs.
But as you say, it's interesting. This team points percentage wise is second place in the out of the wild card right now. So it's not over.
So stop me if you want to keep going on the Penguins, but I want to travel east within the state of Pennsylvania to Philadelphia.
We can travel to Philly. It's a D potential. I don't know.
Scott Laughton.
Yeah.
Scott Laughton. Scott Laughton is a winning player. Scott Laughton buys in. Scott Laughton takes faceoffs. He's a great third-line center for that kind of glue line that we've talked about. I'm still hanging with my Kings can bring it back kind of thing. I'd love to see Laughton to the Kings, scratch Pierre-Luc Dubois, and slot Laughton in on that third line, and see what the Kings can do with that kind of formula. Another thought is Laughton being a piece up to Edmonton. That's a better fit, I think, for what they need. A
Bring
third
some
liner,
depth.
that can provide scoring depth.
I agree. You got to stop mocking trades of centers to the Kings. It's just not going to happen. Like you got to it's just not a realistic option here. But yeah, Scott Laughton would be a great. They have a lot of good pieces. Scott Laughton's one of them, but apparently they really like him, which makes sense. Torts probably loves the
And
dude.
he's on a good contract for another 2 years.
The Flyers they have a great percentage to make the playoffs.
But they've already committed their front office to not
They're not
buying
going
at the
for it.
deadline.
I understand that, but do you
And they're obviously out Carter Hart pretty much forever.
do you see this as the Winnipeg of last year's Western Conference?
Maybe, but look at what Winnipeg did.
Right, I hear you.
I
They
just see this
fell
as a
apart.
team
They
that's-
won their first playoff game, and then they got swept.
This
Correct.
team's going to be better in 3 years. Buying in now because they're playing well is probably not the right move, and
Definitely not the right
that's
move.
what the front office is
And
saying.
you say Scott Laughton. It doesn't stop there. Ristolainen's been talked about. I think he's up for an extension. The other one would be Scott Walker. There's a bit of a D surplus in Philly, at least in terms of what they're ready to move on
a
from.
ton.
And
It's because of the Drysdale.
Yeah.
Drysdale
I
is
think
something they didn't
confident.
expect.
They feel confident that Drysdale he's going to be that future blue liner with maybe Cam York.
oh
Of
yeah,
course,
he's
but-
part of their core.
But now
Yeah.
they have a logjam there, and there's a lot of guys that teams would want.
Yep.
Yep. And you can get. I mean, as we talked about with Winnipeg, kind of retooling, and now how they look great this year. Potentially, maybe Philly moves a few of these guys, and they come back next year, and it looks great.
I just keep thinking in my head around deadline. You know, we had all this talk about deadline last year. I thought we were pretty on point with all of it. But at the end of the Stanley Cup playoffs, who was the player at the deadline that made the biggest impact? There is a correct answer.
Barbashev.
Ivan Barbashev.
Yeah.
Who is this year's Ivan Barbashev?
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. And I think it could be Scott Laughton. Call
Could
me
be.
fucking crazy.
Could be.
Yeah.
In terms of Ristolainen, apparently the Canucks and Maple Leafs have checked in on that, but it is apparently they're willing to retain, but at a price.
I call him Rusty Rustalainen.
Yeah. Sabres are not actively trying to move on from Casey Middlestad. That's one I really don't care about, but apparently they're listening. He prefers to stay.
I mean, he'd be a good addition for a team.
I don't know what he can add to a playoff team.
Nick Robinson, apparently a talk of
Robertson.
Robertson, thank you. Of being a Maple Leafs trade piece.
I think Robertson's gone. The Leafs have a redundancy. He's another one of the scorers that can't grind.
I agree.
He's like a lot of teams should want him. He's a promising player. He's Robo's brother. Not that is everything, but it's
Matters.
It's relevant. Like Robertson to me he's gone. He's going to be part of whatever trades the Leafs.
He should be, and the Leafs fans in 5 years are probably not going to like what they got back for him. But the reality is he would never have become that player in Toronto.
Right.
So, it's one of those trades they should make, and they're probably going to get a worse return than he'll be as a player.
But
that's okay. That doesn't mean it's a bad move for that team.
I agree completely.
When you're desperate and you need to make a move, that this is the price to pay.
Even not in desperation, though. That could be a good move for a winning team.
Yeah, I
you
don't
know?
know. Desperate's not the right word.
Phil the Thrill. The phone's ringing. Apparently, the Canucks have been intrigued by Phil the Thrill. They're worried about conditioning, but he is staying.
The fact that conditioning came into that story to me is very peculiar. Who had the report that had conditioning? Is it LeBrun or is that
Rick?
Freach?
I don't know how to say his last name. I'm not going to say it.
All right. Maybe it's probably some local beat guy. But Phil Kessel's conditioning has really never been a problem for Phil Kessel on the ice.
That was my reaction too. It's like, what were you expecting him to have a 6-pack?
Seriously,
Because if he had a 6-pack, I wouldn't want him.
yeah, well, but my point is this isn't an audition for the ESPN body issue. Like you're trying to obviously add a scorer that can fly and produce for you in a limited role in limited minutes, can get you some cheap goals and add a boost to your roster and some obvious three-time Stanley Cup champion, right? Like just tremendous experience, and I'm not gonna say Phil's gonna come in and be a veteran leader, but he does keep the room light. Mm-hmm. He's hilarious. Everybody seems to get a kick out of him, and he showed the humility.
A winner.
Well, he showed the humility last year to be in and out of the lineup despite his resume. To understand and put the team first, so that makes him very appealing. And the upside is, he could score 10 goals in a playoffs at this age. He could.
Does Phil have 4?
What'd you say?
4 rings?
No,
3?
3.
2 with
2
Pittsburgh.
with Pittsburgh, 1 last year.
Gotcha. Otherwise, I was going to say he's got to have the most rings in the league right now, active. If he had 4, I feel like
Crosby has 3.
Yeah. Interesting. We'll see what happens. Trade deadline will always be coming as we head towards that March 3rd deadline. Things will be heating up as we continue along with that. Moving on to a little bit of a wild card check-in. And with that being said, the Eastern Conference right now is being led with Toronto Maple Leafs in the first wild card spot and Armor's Detroit Red Wings in the second spot. As I misinformed the audience earlier, the New Jersey Devils are 4 points behind Detroit with a similar tied at games at hand. Teams involved, teams in it. The New York Islanders, the Washington Capitals are somehow still alive, but Ovechkin has started to score. And Pittsburgh Penguins in the Eastern hunt. The other teams that could potentially fall out of it, especially now with Sergachev hitting the shelf, the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Philadelphia Flyers, if they, depending on how they right the ship and what it continues, are the teams that are really in the wild card hunt. What do we got, boys?
So,
on the East?
so just to be clear, right now on games played, Tampa's in third, but on points percentage, Toronto and Detroit are both ahead of them.
Mm-hmm.
So Toronto and Detroit are neck and neck for the third spot in the Atlantic, and the first wild card. And Tampa is like neck and neck with the last wild card and New Jersey.
Yep.
This is a little out of order, but there's been the Hanifin to Tampa kind of rumor.
Mm-hmm.
I've just got a weird feeling Hanifin to Florida Panthers.
We'll see what happens.
Just my logic there is I think it's a good fit. There's obvious tax benefits of being in Florida. That's got to be appealing to Hanifin, who's been up in Calgary. East Coast guy, obviously. All the things that point to Tampa, the difference is Florida's a better team that is in a better position to compete for a cup, that I believe has a better war chest of assets to make a trade. Tampa's depleted, right? I mean, they've just gone for it every year, and so
as you said earlier, I mean, I don't think now that Sergachev's really hit the shelf, it makes making a move very difficult for the Lightning.
I know New Jersey's trying to make things happen.
But it makes it more important.
In New Jersey,
Correct.
New
They don't
Jersey
have
has
any
a million
draft capital.
prospects. New Jersey has a million prospects. So
I like Hanifin to New Jersey if they can repair the GM relationship after this
that
one.
might cost Nemitz.
Nemitz has been talked about. I mean, I think Holtz.
He's been so good. They won't.
Holtz
do that.
seems to be the big guy that they want to move.
I don't think Holtz does it for Hanifin.
No, I know. I mean, we'll see what
big package, but yeah,
we'll see
Nemitz
what
is
happens
not
there.
getting moved.
Army, what do you got on the wild card chase in the Eastern Conference?
Well, it's interesting. The Sergachev injury obviously
Changes things
because now one of these other two teams, like they could be in the wild card race pretty quickly.
They are in the wild card
They
race,
are,
as far as I'm concerned.
And then the other thing that's interesting is Phillies. They have a lot of points, but a lot of games played. But it could be a situation where the two Metro teams are fighting for the divisional spot and not the wild card spot. So like Philly, New Jersey, and New York could all be going for that Metro spot, while Detroit, Toronto, and Tampa are just seeding, essentially.
New Jersey has played 51. Philly's played 54. This is where my magic number 8 was coming into it. It's an 8-point difference between the two teams at this point. It's been weird. I mean, I feel like, especially after the World Juniors stuff that has occurred, you feel like the drop-off is coming from Philly, and it just has not happened. And so yes.
It's pretty amazing. But I still look at the rosters of all these teams.
You go New Jersey all day long. But
and Philly just seems like if there's one team that's going to drop a little bit, I guess you could throw Tampa in there now because the defense is suspect, and it's getting worse. But Philly is still I know they're playing well. Every time I watch them, I'm impressed. But they still feel like you won't believe them making the playoffs till they're there.
I agree with you.
Take another month or two before I seriously believe that they're going to make it.
It's one of those where we looked at where the hole that Edmonton dug themselves early in the season. This is where Jersey has just been kind of, yes, they are 6 games above the 500 mark, or 5. It's felt like has New Jersey kind of dug themselves that hole that they are a wild card spot. That would be the question I guess I posed to you guys.
I think maybe, but I also think it might be harder to make the wild card than it is to get the third spot on the Metro.
No, it's the East has been the point getters. There's no question about that. Anything to chime in on, or you got anything?
The other thing I'll say, the Islanders I think are going to be really dangerous here.
Barzal looks like a new Barzal. I mean, things have changed with Patty Waugh coming in.
They've been playing good hockey. Sorokin's back on form.
Yep.
And they look a lot more dangerous, which is what, when we talked about Patrick Waugh coming in, all the players were gushing about this. They seem to be playing that way. And again, we talked about how we don't really know what this team is outside of their shell that they've been playing in. But when I've watched them, they seem to be a dangerous team that still hasn't compromised. Like the defense is still good, it seems. They don't have to play like they've been playing to have good defense. I think they're dangerous. And I think if New Jersey doesn't make a goaltender move, it's just really hard for them to win games right now. With the goaltending they're getting, it's just so difficult.
Especially they've put in some solid performances as of late, and it's cost them.
They're a good team. They just when you have bad goaltending,
it shows.
It's hard to win games with it, and it's also hard for the players to keep the pep in their step when it's just geez, we let up one chance and it's a goal.
Yep. Any final thoughts on the East before we move to the West?
I got none.
Moving on to the Western Conference, this has been a race that unfortunately your LA Kings have found themselves into, leading the first wildcard spot with 58 points. Second place spot goes to the St. Louis Blues, who are in a battle with the Nashville Predators as really that closest spot, with also Calgary refusing to go away. In terms of the divisions itself, the Kings are 3 points behind the Edmonton Oilers, with the Oilers having one game
Jack, enough with the math, right? It's Vancouver, Vegas, Edmonton in the Pacific.
Well, I'm just
it's
saying.
Dallas, Colorado, Winnipeg, and Central.
I hear you.
Just a big picture thought here on the Western Conference playoff view is, I'm getting a popsicle stick headache here talking about games and points. Coming into the year, I think we all thought there were 6 good teams. No, we really thought there were 5 good teams in the West. Dallas, Colorado, Vegas, Edmonton, LA. Vancouver surprised us. Winnipeg surprised us.
Yep.
LA has now obviously U-turned towards the cellar. So I think right now, very clearly, there are 6, maybe 7 if you give it to LA, good teams in the West.
Yeah.
And LA could fall off a cliff and end it. But if LA can get their shit back together, you're looking at 7 good teams in the West. That 8th spot is going to come from a pile of mush that is St. Louis, Nashville, Calgary, Minnesota.
Yep.
And it's just, in Seattle. I mean, it's just that last spot could be any number of things, but I think when we by the second round of the playoffs, I don't think we're going to be talking about it very much.
I agree.
I know, but I do think it I know it might not matter in the Stanley Cup race, but it is this matters for teams to make the playoffs. Especially I know as a Wings fan, not being in the playoffs a long time, it's exciting to get in the playoffs, even if you know you're going to get your shit rocked.
And building and developing young players that need the experience, right?
And
even
this is
just
now.
playing, even just getting your asses kicked in a 5 or 6 game first round series teaches a lot of important lessons for player development and helps you realize who's real and who's not, right? It shapes front offices' views. That's how front offices commit to young players and decommit from young players.
I think that's key.
I think of Tyler Seguin all the time in that sense.
I think it's key to both the St. Louis and Nashville team that are both kind of in a weird stage of where they're at right now, and then in St. Louis,
Calgary's in that same bucket.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's an interesting little race to keep a track of.
And what's crazy is how quick this can change. Arizona was in this discussion, and then they go and lose 6 games in a row.
Yeah.
They seem out of it now.
Yeah.
They seem out of it, but I don't have any faith that any of these other 5 teams in front of them right now aren't going to do the same thing at some point. And then, 30 games from now, we're looking at something where they could end up with it. I don't think they're out of it because I don't have any faith in any of these teams to consistently win at a 500 rate.
But just looking at the conference, right? Dallas heavyweight, Colorado heavyweight, Vegas heavyweight, Edmonton heavyweight, Vancouver's proven to be a heavyweight. Winnipeg's earned its respect and status there.
Yep.
Everyone else is suspect. And LA is at the top of the list.
Including your LA Kings. Yeah.
I do think that LA's a wild card team at this point, though.
Oh, I
think
they ain't going to catch
as you started it with the West, you said 7 teams. Right now, I say 6 teams in the West.
It's hard to trust LA at the moment.
They need to prove that they can right the ship. I mean, I know we don't want to talk about the numbers.
No, they are suspect. The Kings are suspect.
They're 500 at home.
Dude, it's just.
I know you don't read into that, but I still think that's a big. You got to be good in your own building. I think that's just a.
Even when it's called Crypto.com Arena.
That's.
They just can't find a way to
people
invest.
in LA are now just referring to it as crypto. I'm like, come on, it's Staples, man, Staples.
Not anymore, bro.
All right, that wraps up a little wild card.
Who do you guys think's gonna get these wild card spots?
In the West, or should we start with
West.
the East?
In the West.
Okay. Well, all right.
We can do the East too.
I like it staying put.
So you like
Kings.
LA and St. Louis?
Yeah.
I'm going LA and Calgary.
Okay. Okay.
I'm going LA and Seattle. Fuck it.
Different.
My point is, I'm taking a shot here on the 8th seed because I just don't.
Well, it's
I think there's a huge drop off there from 7 to 8.
feels like blackjack a little bit.
A little bit. So
East.
I'm taking the odds.
Quick prediction. I mean, this is a little bit more. Well, there's a few teams in there actually. East, who we're predicting.
I think the three Atlantic teams get in, so Tampa, Toronto, Detroit. But then I think New Jersey's going to take Philly's spot.
So I think
Who gets the wild card?
Huh?
Who gets the wild card?
I'll go with Detroit and Tampa.
Okay.
I think Tampa's going to miss the playoffs. I think Philly's going to miss the playoffs. I think Toronto and Detroit are going to make it, and that leaves New Jersey and the Islanders. So
Yeah, I kind of like that too.
I'm going with that.
That's a good pick.
I'm just going to stick with that. Shuffle up the order and how it shakes out, but I think Tampa, dude, Sergachev is so that's a season ender.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Philly, again, they're scrappy as hell, and they just might get in, but it's a lot to deal with, especially with the strategy of their organization, which again we all agree is the right strategy. Islanders, we've talked about Patty Waugh. That's an injection of life. In New Jersey, all right. So what we did learn from that, Backstrom rumor, right, is New Jersey's front office is being aggressive, and they're not ready. They're not ready to sit on their hands and see how it plays out with the current setup. They're trying to make major changes and get back to being a cup contender, which I think we all agree they're a legit goalie and maybe a little tweak away from. So I'm going, I think your playoff picture in the East is going to be Island from bottom to top, right? Just roughly Islanders, Devils, Detroit, Toronto, and then Carolina, Rangers, Florida, Boston at the top.
Interesting. I'm going to say Philly and Detroit. I think New Jersey will bump Philly out of that divisional spot. I think Toronto will bump the Lightning, and I think the Lightning will miss the playoffs. Interesting. We'll see. It'll be a race to continue to check in on as we head towards the end of the season and playoffs.
But if Tampa does finish third in the Atlantic, John Cooper should get some fucking Jack Adams votes.
Hey, they're 7-3 in their last 10. Unfortunate to lose their defenseman, Sergachev. Moving on to the always reliable, the loose change. We, as we said in the beginning of the show, are recording on a Tuesday. Tuesday's usually a heavy night for loose change, so it might be a little bit softer this week, but we'll see what the boys bring to the table. I've got a game from last night, and I watched a little bit of that Wings Canucks game. Yeah, I've got a little bit, but Army, do you want to lead us off? Rusty, who wants to take the charge?
I have some quick ones. I have three
Fire from the
players
hip.
I want to
Bring up.
to really talk about.
Okay.
First guy, Marty Necas of the Carolina Hurricanes.
The Natchez boy.
The Necas boy is shooting the puck a lot right now, and it's working. But I've watched him play. He's playing on the second power play, but that power play seems more effective from I've watched 3 games in the past 2 weeks, let's say. When the Necas power plays on the ice, it's good because he's kind of playing that, obviously he's not McDavid, but that role where they kind of float. It's not a bumper. It's like the floating bumper. They kind of just let him skate around the whole zone. And he's ripping the puck, and it's working. He's been scoring lately. So he's been really good.
Hey.
And I think for that team, having another aggressive offensive player is huge.
Oh.
He's trying to make things happen.
It's crucial, I think, for Carolina, who we've talked about has the talent, but has the limited scoring, or as the producing of scoring has just not come. He did have a hat trick versus the Avalanche on I think Thursday night in a 5-2 win for the Hurricanes. Marty Necas, it's kind of the coming out party of finally saying, all right, well, we know this guy has this talent. We're waiting for him to take that next step, and it seems like he might be, as we've talked about with Aho and who's the Russian? Svechnikov kind of leading the scoring on this team. It helps to have a third dynamic duo or dynamic trio in this sense.
He's a play driver.
Yeah.
And play drivers are really hard. There's
He's
good
a big,
offensive players.
sturdy, and he can score.
Yeah.
He's talented and he's skilled. So it's big for Jersey or for Carolina. Sorry.
Yep.
What else?
Heading over the Blue Jackets, who have this group of young, I don't know if they're all Russian, but they all sound Russian. But the guy I'm talking about, Dmitry Voronkov, 6'5", 240 center, who shoots the puck. He's a shooter, and he likes to score.
And he can skate.
And he can skate. He's like playing second line center for them right now, and I didn't know about him, and then I saw like a highlight of one of his goals, and I'm like, this guy is just like, he's a little too big and fast for how like those things just don't pair together, and skilled. So he's a guy I'm just watching now because like I'm pretty intrigued by the idea of like a skilled retro power forward in Columbus, I guess. But just one of the, like, I don't know where these guys came from, like Marchenko, Voronkov, and Shinnikov, but they all seem to have like come up together, and like nobody's talking about them because there's all these other players to talk about in Columbus first.
Barely. I mean, 7 goals for Johnny Gaudreau in 51 games.
I know, but you talk about him. You talk about Werenski. You talk about Fantilli. But these guys, I like these guys. And Voronkov is just such a unit. I'm intrigued is what I'll say.
Yeah, I like it. Giving Columbus a little watching. Good.
Yeah, and it's not depressing watching like Gaudreau. And then last guy I got to highlight, another big boy, comes with prospect pedigree. Uri Slafkovsky is looking good. This was brought up. This may have been brought up. Sorry about breaking save it for the pod, but we didn't bring it up. But at the Stanley Club last night after GHL. But when I had been reading a lot of people saying he looks good and decisive. I looked up and then I looked at his numbers. Been scoring and putting like numbers on the board, which I think is a huge change.
He's a stud.
And
goes up with the Tanev photos.
And Slafkovsky's making plays that are like tight area, smart, quick plays. I think big players oftentimes struggle to like get quick pucks off and move in tight areas, and especially in playoffs, that's concerning. A lot of the stuff he's been doing is like quick shots, getting it off with a defender in front of him, just stuff that like really translates to scoring goals and being an effective player at a high speed. I think the Canadiens fans are pretty fired up about how he's looking.
It's good insight because when we've talked about this case, it's been a matter of can he adjust from going from the Olympic size, the international size, to the NHL rank. So you're starting to see that it is starting to translate. So that's positives for a guy that was potentially being talked about as a big bust for the Montreal.
But he also
Canadiens.
came up like when he was drafted, he was not projected to be a year one NHL player.
No,
and he was.
Correct.
He was looked at as a project, so you get a little different things. And then everyone's like, "Oh, Logan Cooley should have been number 1 pick when he's playing at Minnesota." What does he do when he comes up? He's not having as good of a season as Slafkovsky. He's just not scoring as much, not doing as much. So that's where I think he was kind of treated a little bit unfairly, but good for him on developing.
Yep.
See where it goes.
I am biased in this because I'm rooting for his demise and that of everything Montreal. I formed that opinion on a very small sample size, I think admittedly and transparently. As we get up to deadline, I'll have to watch a little bit more Habs, and I'll have more on Slafkovsky, but I remain out on Slafkovsky. But I just want to monitor some of these Habs to see if they are smart enough to trade valuable deadline pieces, such as David Savard.
Mm-hmm. It's been
talked about what a good playoff piece he could be. That contract never made sense in Montreal. I'm going to keep an eye on that. So hey, I'm not gonna get out of my take bunker that Slafkovsky's a bust and he's not gonna cut it. But I do owe him a little further investigation. So you got my commitment.
I like it. Any other loose changes?
No.
Nice. I like the 3 little player watch. Rusty, do you want to go?
Yeah, my loose change is short and sweet. It's a little outdated, but I caught a little bit of Corey Perry, Ryan McLeod, and Dylan Holloway playing together on a line in Edmonton, trying to form that desperately needed, kind of grind line up there to complement their elite skill everywhere else. Again, small sample size. I saw a game they played not last night, not last week, a little bit ago, but.
This is first LA, or when was this?
It was against Vegas, so
Gotcha.
If you look at the schedule,
No
you can
problem.
figure out when it was. But it was a bit ago. But I didn't get to it on the prior pod, and that line is compelling to me. You've got McLeod, who's a great face-off man and can skate extremely well and play a physical game. Holloway, who has pretty embarrassing offensive numbers, but he's a big body, former first-round pick, skates extremely well, willing to get greasy, dirty, and we know what Corey Perry brings to the table, especially when he's able to play with line mates that are fleet of foot, right? So he's not kind of a slow guy slowing everybody down. Those guys are fast enough that they can kind of compromise, I think. So that's a line that's jumped out to me that if Edmonton can go on the playoff run that
Right.
they seem destined for. I think that's going to be an important line to watch. That's really all my loose changes. Matt Grzelcyk got a maximum suspension for spear.
Yep.
And I saw the play.
Maximum fine.
On Max Pacioretty.
I know, tough break for Pacioretty and his history with the Bruins. But yeah, my 2 cents on that is just like, I mean, you saw the blade go right into the ball sack, but I really don't think Grzelcyk was trying to do exactly that. I think he was trying to. So pitchfork is what he did, but what he was trying to do was get his stick between the legs and I think give a little bit more of a cup check with the shaft. But he ended up getting the blade right in there, and he got thrown out of the game, and it was probably the right call. And it couldn't happen to a less fortunate guy in Pacioretty. So I'm not taking Grzelcyk off the hook for that. I wanted to say, like, I saw the play, and I don't think Grzelcyk's not that kind of guy. That's not what he was trying to do. And it wasn't like a retaliatory anything. It was just kind of off puck, and it seems completely unnecessary, and I think it was completely unintentional. Grzelcyk still got to go. But anyway, end of loose change for Rusty.
Nice. Tuned in a little bit on Saturday night. I love that ESPN on the consoles, at least. So on my Xbox, I'm able to put up like the 4 different games on the screen, which is fun. Hard to kind of track, but
That is awesome. Why do they not do that?
on the regular
On
system,
every
I don't know.
version.
I don't know.
Why
But
can't I
it's
do that
nice.
on my computer?
But I'm able to quadcast on the.
I
console version.
need help on my PS4 doing that.
Copy. We'll see if that old generation still has it. But Saturday night, tuned into a few of them. I watched a little bit of that second period between Detroit and Vancouver. It was one of those periods where just Vancouver, when they turn it on, they just look so good. I mean, it's always Quinn Hughes is leading from the back, but it was some impressive stuff. And, I didn't see the Detroit comeback, so I apologize for that. But sounds like the Wings were able to storm back with 2 goals in that third to win it with a Wallman overtime penalty shot. The Carolina game, 0-0 game going into overtime. Pretty fun overtime. Unfortunately, this was your Termite, or not your Termite, Saturday pick. Jersey had a great overtime. Unfortunately, it just was one of those plays where puck turned and Aho was able to bounce or baseball swing a puck into the net off a rebound to finish it. But actually, Vanacek was good in this one, so I don't fault Vanacek in this one. It's just a unfortunate ability to not be able to score. Where else? Let's see. Moving on to yesterday. Caught period 1 and 2 of the Flyers-Coyotes game. Yotes kind of took the lead early. You talked about the Yotes earlier, and this is where I'm kind of on the point where I think the Yotes are dead. Is they remain in games. They're able to stay close in games. They give up a ton of chances, give up a ton of shots. It seemingly they find the lucky bounces, but I think that they are not scoring to what their weaknesses are, and they just lose flow of the game. And Philly, who we've talked about, has stayed consistent throughout the year. They were flexing their guns through the first and second. It was fun to see a Morgan Frost penalty shot in the second where he buried. But the Flyers, it was nice to watch the Flyers. They looked good, and it was a surprising performance. I'm a little worried. I don't know who the goalie is now that things have changed, but that's my biggest concern if they want to stay afloat, I guess. But
He's been playing well. I forget his name, but he's not supposed to be good.
yeah,
But he's been playing well. Did you get to see them go in the penalty kill at all?
the Flyers.
Yeah.
Let me see.
I mean, well, if you
It was
can't
a
remember,
straightforward question.
No,
Did you
probably
see
not.
that?
just saying it's worth watching. It's one of the most must-watch things in hockey. Earlier in the year, I gave crap about the Dean Evison. Let's put 4 guys in the slot and just not let them pass around and just eat every shot.
Like nice and congested, or
Yeah, they all just sit in the middle,
top
and
of each
essentially
other,
it's like
yeah.
5 goalies, and the passes are just freely allowed.
It's like a hellfish.
shots.
It's like a hellfish D zone
Yeah.
D zone system.
And so Philly's also doing that, but the difference is they have all these elite shot blockers, specifically Garnet Hathaway and then Nick Seeler.
Dude, I think Hathaway is the best shot blocking forward in the league.
He's great, and Nick Seeler is like almost as good. Like they're both just like it's like probably like 80% of why they're in the league. It's
Right.
because they can do that at just such an unbelievable rate. But it's pretty funny to watch. Just teams just passing around outside. You can't get in the
Right.
middle.
Yeah, what's the term on Hathaway's contract?
I think it might be a
1 or
1 year
2.
deal.
Let's see.
That's a deadline piece.
He might get well, but dude, I think Torts loves him so much.
I don't see much change in this Philly team. Maybe a defenseman, but that's really all I see leaving Philadelphia.
All right, we don't need to drag our listeners through looking that up. All right.
Yeah, no, but we'll see what happens. As we said, we're recording on a Tuesday, so Tuesday ends up being a heavy day for us. The boys were on vacation. I was tuned in a little bit, but we'll get Loose Change firing back at its full potential here next week when we get back on the
Hathaway has one more year at 2.37.
I think he's there for another year. Is what I would say.
We'll see.
We'll see. That is true. Oh, that's a great picture of him right there. Moving on. Another great Loose Change in the books. Termite of the week. We had our Termite show. Should we go through? No, I'm going to force the listeners to go and go find either the Instagram page or listen to last week's episode. It's all over it. Check out our beautiful faces on YouTube as well as you can watch it live in person as the boys went through their Termite squad. It's time to elect new nominees for the Termite of the week in the woodshed. And who's joining the nominees? The queue that Miles Wood will be watching over for the next 50 episodes. 49.
Rusty's pick. Feeling really good about our selections there for first and second team already in the books. Going totally off the board here. I've probably watched about, all told, 35 minutes of Columbus Blue Jackets hockey all year. One guy screams off the television to me. That is one Justin Danforth. He wears number 17. He's all of 5'9", and the guy is everywhere. Everywhere but the stat sheet. Well, he's got 19 points. 9 goals, 10 assists, 51 games. That's pretty solid, all things considered with what's going on in Columbus. I thought he was like a kid. I thought he was like a rookie. Mm-hmm. He's a 1993 birth year. He's 30 years old. He spent 4 years in the OJ and 4 years at Sacred Heart University.
It's D1.
Overlapping with my dear pal, Jeffrey Wendell Bradley. Hope you're listening, JB. And after that, he went down to the EC, up and down with the ECHL and the AHL with the Bridgeport Sound Tigers, the Rochester Americans, the Cincinnati Cyclones, spending 44 games down there, registering 59 points in the 17-18 season, back up to Rochester here and there. Then he goes to Europe, and he plays in SM Liga, which is Swedish?
I think so.
Mm-hmm. That is like the Swedish High League.
So.
Very strong performance over in Sweden. 3 straight seasons, just about a point a game, even split goals and assists. Signs over in Columbus and spends 21-22 primarily with the big club. Not a lot of PIMs for him, and that's a little bit of a red flag. But when you watch, he really jumps off the screen. I love what I've seen from him. He's got a Connor Garland to his game that is, he's not as crafty or skilled, not nearly, and he's probably about 15 or 20 pounds heavier and plays it than Garland. Like Garland's like puck battle win rate is like him being crafty and like distorting his body and doing like what we talked about, like the Star Wars, flying in between the legs of the AT-AT. Danforth is a little bit more of a wrecking ball down there in the corners, despite his size.
Pinball machine.
There you go. So that's my pick. Justin Danforth, the 30-year-old, longtime pro hockey veteran, but just 102 games played in the NHL.
Hey, you hit the 100-game mark. That's good. Interesting. I haven't watched a ton of Blue Jackets hockey. Don't know of a Danforth, but now we know of a Danforth.
Yeah, I love the pick. The resume alone speaks for itself. And just on circling back there, SM League is actually the Finnish league, which is obviously worse.
More termite.
Yeah,
and more
way
termite.
more termite.
Yep.
So that's
lower
a big
level
boost.
than SHL would be the Swedish, right?
SHL, yep.
SHL is right.
Okay. And I think he spent a year in the K also.
Liga.
Nope. Oh, yeah. He spent 2021 in the KHL. He spent the COVID year in the KHL.
Played 58.
Yeah, no. And
55 points.
That's 55 points in 58 games in the KHL. It's pretty good. So I think the guy's got game, and here he is starting his pro career at, 28, 29, 30. But
getting the nomination at 30.
That's the nomination, boys.
Interesting.
Thoughts?
Don't know the guy, so I don't have any.
I've seen his name on like stat sheet watching that I do. Yeah, love it. Love it. I mean, the resume alone is like what a Termite should be made of. And you can imagine the type of player that makes his NHL debut at 28 or whatever, like around that age. Like that's what you expect. So yeah, good for him. I'm looking at his Swedish team now. How Gill played for them.
You got to respect his like chasing the dream stretch there where, he plays 4 years at Sacred Heart, comes out and doesn't have a chance at the NHL. He's battling up and down the EC and the A, goes abroad, and when he leaves the AHL to go play in Finland, he's probably thinking to himself, maybe I can have some good years, maybe go from the Finnish league to like the Austrian league and just the Italian league and playing some of these beautiful like areas and great like lifestyles, but maybe the NHL's beyond him. But no, he just kept grinding, fought his way over to the KHL and earned himself a big league contract. So definitely a story for us to follow, and I think as we watch a little bit more, because Jackets are another deadline team to see if there are any pieces.
The other one, Blue Jackets wise, I know we didn't talk about it, but apparently Boone Jenner's name's been talked about as well as a potential deadline piece.
He's also decent. Has a decent Termite resume, right. Boone Jenner, but
interesting. All right, well that's the first pick of the new squad or the new nominees for this year's new Termite, old Termite team.
Boone Jenner. I mean, talk about a playoff acquisition. That's another guy.
Yeah, that's a powerhouse.
Indeed
player.
it is. Indeed it is. Saturday picks. The boys weren't even able to tune into their winners, but the Detroit Red Wings, as we talked about, defeated the Vancouver Canucks. The Carolina Hurricanes in their Whalers uniforms. They had it all rocking on.
They had the Cooperalls,
the headbands. It was quite the sight. Are both winners, but you guys stick at 10.
What did you pick and blow it with, Jack?
You liked my pick of Kraken versus Philadelphia, and unfortunately the Crack Attack just didn't have that mojo.
Tough.
It was a tough one, but new Saturday upon us, the 17th. Ross and Alex are at 10-6. I go back to 500 at 8-8. Boys, Ross, lead us off. Saturday picks. Only one game on Friday, and I'll tell you now.
I saw it. I already checked it out. It's not.
Yotes Hurricanes.
Yep. And those guys.
Enjoy your Friday nights, people.
But the Yotes and the Canes aren't even playing Saturday, so it's irrelevant.
Extremely a reason to enjoy your Friday nights.
So it's a weird schedule this Saturday. It's officially the first week after the NFL season.
Yep.
And there's the Stadium Series game
Kicks off
with Philly and New Jersey that's going to be outdoors. And
Part 1.
You can see the schedule where the league really pushed all the other games earlier in the day. That game is going to be on prime time as a showcase on ABC. So I try to stay away from early games, try to stay away from matinees. This isn't quite a matinee. It's a 5 p.m. local puck drop. Florida Panthers at Tampa Bay Lightning. It might be a little chalky, and I'll own that, but I'm looking at the Lightning team. I don't think they're going to make a change between now and then on their blue line, and I like the Panthers to defeat the Lightning at Amalie Arena in Tampa.
Thought about that one. I was like, maybe you take -1.5 even on that one, but interesting.
Good puck line nominee too.
Yeah. But I'm gonna call you we'll see. We'll see what the number is on the graphic, but some chalky chalk. Armor, what's your pick?
I'm going for maybe the most interesting. There's a lot of good games on this Saturday, but I'm going to take Canucks hosting the Jets.
Ooh.
I'm going to take the Canucks.
Ooh, okay. 9 p.m. start in Vancouver,
it's a litmus
British
test.
Columbia, Jesus, at Rogers Arena. Interesting. All right, well, the Hurricanes are playing that night, by the way. They're playing Vegas at 9:30. Scroll down to the bottom of your list, please.
And I've got some boys in town and probably going to be going to that Senators Blackhawks game if you guys want to join.
Tough to pass up on Stutzel and the boys.
Might bring a sign for Greig.
Tough pick. Tough options left.
You could pick the Red Wings.
Fuck it. I'm going to take the worst. Well, potentially the worst game of the night, but I'm going to ride the Blue Jackets to beat the San Jose Sharks at 9:30.
I love it.
That is not potentially the worst game. That is the worst game.
In San Jose, the Blue Jackets travel out west. They're on, I'm assuming their West Coast trip, but I'm going to take the Blue Jackets to beat the San Jose Sharks, who just lost Thomas Hertl for potentially the rest of the season.
Danforth game-winning goal, I'm calling it.
I feel like you just.
I think it's Voronkov.
You got to throw the anytime goal on if you can find.
Yeah, probably not on my book. Yeah,
even has odds, but those are probably juicy. Interesting. All right, well, that is Saturday picks. Should be an interesting one. Ross takes Florida over Tampa. Alex takes, you said Vancouver over Winnipeg, and I'm taking the Blue Jackets over the
all
Sharks.
favorites. Probably not a ton of juice this week, but
We'll
hey,
see.
if we hit it, we hit it, and it's three teams.
It's a parlay. There's going to be
Get all
juice.
three. There's juice. Yeah,
Exactly. Take it at your responsibility. We're not gambling experts, Take it as you will. Closing thoughts before we close around down tonight, boys.
Zero, zilch, nada.
No, I mean, pretty fun time of hockey for all these wild card races. I'm excited about that. And no football left. And what are you going to watch in the NBA regular season? So, this is it. Enjoy.
Rangers Islanders, part 2 of the Stadium Series on Sunday. That's a 2 p.m. start on ABC. Otherwise, hopefully.
Where are they playing that?
That's at Giant Stadium, East Rutherford, at MetLife. We'll see. Enjoy your weekends. Here in Chicago, it's been a really pretty week and fortunate for some sunny weather and hopeful for some more on the weekend. I know the people up in the East Coast are getting snowed on, so hopeful that it's not too bad up in New York. But I will say the NHL Players Safety did confirm that it is 5 games for Morgan Riley. Other than that, you can go follow the boys. Go follow Rusty at Rusty Pedroia. Go follow Armdog at Armdog_SS. Give me a follow at Siffyman. Follow the pages at Slotshot Podcast. We're on YouTube, Instagram, all of it. Hit it up. We'd love it. If you like the videos, you'll love the videos. Subscribe. Like them. Like it.
Just one item for the mailbag. That's slotshotpodcast@gmail.com.
Yep.
We're loving the engagement we're getting in the mailbag. Just a little tip and trick there for our Termite listeners out there. Don't bury the lead in your emails. Like have the email include the thesis statement of all the topics that you're including. The teasers about future emails to come. I mean, we appreciate the engagement, and it's been we've got a great population of emailers that's been very impressive. But each email should really live on its own. We're having a hard time keeping track of the regular emailers and all the sequence of what each person's emailing about. So in that single email you send us, please do us the courtesy of introducing a topic and wrapping up the topic in the body of that same email. But please continue to fill the mailbag. It's been fruitful, and I expect to have a mailbag topic next week.
Voronkov goal. Love that. 1-0 Columbus as the Tuesday game is kicked off.
That's what he does.
Voronkov, thank you. Perfect. All right, well, that wraps up another episode of Slotshot Podcast. We appreciate you guys.
That Veronica Vaughn is one fine piece of ours.
We appreciate you guys tuning in. We'll catch you guys next week for next week's pod. You'll find this on Spotify and YouTube on Thursday. Appreciate it. Be good.